We're going to go over the deployment of a 45-foot ladder using a 4-member team. 45-foot ladders are currently in service on all our frontline tractor-drawn aerials as well as our reserve TDAs. You'll also find them on our midship mount towers and Burtonsville straight truck. Although the video that you will see will focus on how a 4-member team can successfully deploy a ladder, this of course does not mean that when members are available, they should not be used to complete this task. A few things that I'd like to point out. The deployment that you will see in the video were filmed in just a few of the many locations throughout Montgomery County where 45-foot ladders would need to be used because of the building's limited access. Without question, these ladders are a necessary tool in our department. The 4-person deployment that you will see has been under development and testing for some time now, and our deployment method has been shared and communicated with Duo Safety along the way to ensure that the ladder is being used within manufacturer's recommended use and guidelines. Some things to note. More than likely, whenever a 45-foot ladder would need to be deployed, it will be to the rear of a structure and on soft ground such as grass. Because of these conditions, one must realize that when deploying this 245-foot-pound ladder, it will sink and settle into the ground. Because of this, members that are assigned to the poles will have to adjust their location to provide stability via the poles. If because of the terrain and settling of the ladder, it begins to lean slightly to the left or right, you have to make an adjustment and move your pole members to one side or the other to counterbalance this effect. Lastly, as you will see in this deployment method and previous deployment methods, it does require room to deploy. Because of this, there will be times when this ladder will have to be deployed in a manner that will require the ladder to be rotated into position once it is in the vertical position. Rotating the ladder is not a new skill, but will be reviewed in subsequent videos. As you can see, the ladder is stored on its bed section in the ladder tunnel of the truck. As the members remove the ladder, they will have to consider when and where to rotate the ladder to have the fly section face down. Whether it's done initially or done once it's lowered into position on the ground in front of the target is ultimately up to the officer in charge. Because of the position of the ladder on the truck, the members decided to use a shoulder carry method to move the ladder into position. An at-arms carry is also a viable and acceptable way to carry this ladder. As the members have the ladder into position, they use a hand over the beam to grasp the rung and lower to the ground. As you will see later in the video, another acceptable method is to power squat the ladder into position. Once the ladder is lowered to the ground, the member in charge is identified as the number 1 position. The skills book will break free and walk in line with the ladder approximately 8 to 10 feet from the tip. He will be in charge of the entire evolution. Once he is in position, he will call for the poles to be released, and the tip members identified in the skills book as the number 3 and 4 position will ultimately pass both poles to the member in charge, which is in the number 1 position. Once the member in charge has possession of the poles, he will call for the ladder to be raised. The members at the tip, identified as the 3rd and 4th position, will use the power squat method to lift the tip of the ladder and begin to walk the ladder into the vertical position. The member in charge at the pole will only assist as needed to provide some support, but ensuring they do not begin to push until after the ladder has passed over the heads of the 3rd and 4th member position. While this is happening, the member at the heel, identified in the skills book as the number 2 position, will assist by leaning and pulling back on the ladder. Once the ladder is in the vertical position, the member in charge, which is on the poles, will first ensure that the ladder has been stabilized in the vertical position. Once he has ensured and allowed the members to secure the ladder, he will then call for the 3rd position member to break free and secure one of the poles from the member in charge. The remaining members at the heel will assume the same body, hand, and foot placements that they would assume on any other ladder skill. Once they are in position and the 1st position member has ensured that he, along with the 3rd position pole member, has taken a 20 to 30 degree position off center of the ladder, he will then call for the ladder to be extended. As mentioned before, the pole member's location can and will change as the ladder settles into the ground, or as the terrain and weather conditions dictate. Once the ladder is extended to the proper height, the 1st position member, which is in charge, will call for the ladder to be lowered to the building. As you can see here, a very small, quick adjustment by the pole and heel members allowed for the tip to move under the window and into the proper position. As the members begin to remove the ladder from the building, they start to see a slight settling of the ladder, which gives a lean to the right side of the ladder. This was easily corrected by positioning the number 3 pole member to the right side of the ladder. Once the ladder was retracted, the member in charge gives the order to the number 3 pole member to return the pole back to the member in charge and assume the original position as before. Once they are back into position, the member in charge gives the command to lower the ladder back to the ground. Once again, the members decide to lower the ladder to the ground by reaching over the beam and grabbing the rung. The member in charge will then hand both poles to the number 3 and 4 position, which will then hand both poles to the second position to secure to the ladder.